Dzień dobry, dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
Cześć Josh. And hello everyone who's watching this live stream or maybe the recording afterwards. Today we are speaking in a very special setting with a very special guest, and that's the reason why we are exceptionally talking in English today. Because Josh is a beginner learning of Polish, so obviously we couldn't have a full conversation in the language just yet, but we thought this would be still very interesting for all of you guys who are learning Polish as well, to hear from a fellow learner, not only from the native speakers and other Polish teachers are usually on our channel. So we are really curious to see how this experiment goes and if you're like this format.
And please let us know in the comments, what do you think about this idea? And who is with us? Please introduce yourself. And I also would like to ask Josh to introduce himself. Josh, could you tell us who you are and what you do?
And why we dragged you over here into this live stream.
Dragged me very excitedly to join. Yeah, absolutely happy to introduce myself. So hi everyone, my name is Josh. It's not in any particular order, but I'm a husband, a father, and I could say a growing YouTuber. I love learning languages. I've spent a lot of time with Hebrew and with German, and more recently did a 100-day challenge with Polish. And I guess professionally, I work in business consulting, so I do a lot of data science work and research, and so I love numbers. And I studied engineering. Numbers to me are very, very important as descriptors of life, and a great way to help improve things. So I did this 100-day Polish challenge using easy Polish content as a way of testing out a couple of ideas for how best to learn languages. And yeah, so I guess the channel that I have is called One Word at a Time. It has the word data hidden in there. And so that's just this marriage of data and language learning is what I love to explore.
We have some of your fans over here, really excited for you to speak a little bit more about your experiences. And just for some more context for everyone who might not know or guess it, you are originally American, right, Josh? We have like really lots of American viewers who are like learning Polish with our content. So I think for them, it's like also important to know that they are speaking to someone who really gets their perspective.
Yeah, 100%. I know that I'm, I grew up in Delaware, for anyone who's heard of Delaware, the small state. But yeah, I grew up born and raised in the US. And very much before I started learning languages, I had the US mindset of everyone's going to learn English. Everyone should learn God's language, for lack of a better term. So yeah, just the American perspective was definitely there. And yeah, as an American, I'm happy to have really engaged and been able to grow with other languages.
Yeah, we have a lot of people from US learning Polish, but we have also a lot of people from this kind of tech IT space learning Polish. So when you said that you love numbers and you try to learn Polish, it's like, probably many people.
You can immediately think of all your students who are just like Josh.
Yeah, and I hope some of them are watching us now and feel that they find another fellow. Josh, I want to ask you, why Polish?
That's a very good question. I know I've heard a lot of stories, and after watching your videos, I got more of an understanding of how difficult the Polish language is, both in terms of trying to learn it and then from other people's descriptions. But it really came down to a very simple fact that my family half of my family lived in Poland as of 100 years ago. So my grandfather grew up in a little town called Rypin, I think somewhere in central Poland, I guess a little bit more up north. And,
sounds Polish, could exist.
Yeah, it was a tiny little town. It had a small Jewish population before World War II, and then he got he left Poland in 1938. And I always thought, I grew up knowing that he spoke Yiddish, and most, let's say, European Jews spoke Yiddish, but I always thought it was weird that like everyone spread across all of Europe, but still speaking Yiddish, which is, I guess, German and Hebrew. And so I thought, yeah, at some point I'd love to get a better understanding of sort of my family's history from the Polish perspective, just to see if, if I can go through old Polish, records of some sort. I know I don't need to know Polish to do that, especially with modern technology and sort of like, immigration documents that exist. But it came from that interest, and I thought, if I'm going to spend 100 days learning a language, Polish seems like a great choice. And then, I mean, I love the Easy Languages Network. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but Easy German was my foot in the door. And then I did honestly watch one of your videos to see, okay, is it worth it? Is it not? And then, personality-driven YouTube is a beautiful thing. So I loved your videos, not understanding a single word of Polish. And then I thought, okay, this is worth taking a 100-day gamble on.
Yeah, so this was like the whole reason. I mean, like the immediate reason for us dragging you into this live stream. We were exchanging some emails about like you planning to do a 100-day challenge with the Polish language, and then we saw the video that you made about this challenge. Can you tell our viewers who might have not seen this video at all a little bit about like what this challenge was about and why doing a 100-day challenge with the Polish language?
Yeah, absolutely. So in trying to understand how numbers and words come together when it comes to language learning, getting an understanding of how long it takes to become fluent or to reach a certain point is something that's interesting, not just in like the number of years, but I'm trying to measure effort. I've been using Anki for, I guess, with flashcards for a while, and I know how many times on average I have to, let's say, learn a word or review a note card to really, I guess, acquire that word. But I'd heard this idea that you have to see a word in context 20 times to properly I guess, integrate it and have a deep understanding of it. So you have to see it in context and understand it. And I wanted to test that out in a very controlled way. This is where, I guess, the data side or the data man of me or inside me, I guess, wanted to do this experiment. So I said, what if I want to do a challenge, I need this to be as clean as possible. So I need to make sure that I can track every single word that I've seen. And I know that you offer transcripts for the videos that you upload. And so I became a patron. And anyone who's watching this live stream that's not a patron, I would strongly, strongly encourage it. I think it's worth it. They did not tell me to say this, and they're probably blushing at the fact that I'm saying this. But so I became a patron for the sake of the challenge, so that I could have the transcripts there. And so this 100-day challenge was watching videos, keeping track of those videos, and then also making note cards so that I could try and speed up the process of learning words. And that, while all of that was going on, I also wanted to track, okay, if I see a word 20 times versus if I see it 50, what really takes hold in my mind when it comes to Polish learning. So really, for 100 days, all I did was watch easy Polish videos, and then again track the note cards that I was doing, so that I could see, by the end of the challenge, it was something like 80,000 words in Polish, as someone who doesn't speak Polish or didn't speak Polish, and skills are very, very rudimentary just in terms of the goals that I set for myself. Yeah, it was a very, very fascinating challenge to track literally every single word, just to see how the immersion process could go.
Justyna?
I can see that we are already getting a lot of questions to you, Josh, in the chat. So I really want to encourage everyone else who wants to ask Josh questions. Please leave them in the chat. I think towards the end of the live stream, we will be going through them to answer them all. And before we get to that, I wanted to still ask, where did you said about this 20 times exposure rule that you heard about and then started this challenge. Where did it come from? How did you find this theory that you then decided to stick to so much?
Yep. So I think, like many language learners online, I also, in addition to learning the languages that I want to learn, I also spend time learning about how to learn languages, which is maybe not the best use of my time, but I still do it and enjoy it. I've never been interested really in organized linguistics or grammar or anything like that. But as I learned how to learn languages, some rules had come up. So there's a meta-analysis that was done of a bunch of other studies. So taking a look at research that was out there about how people acquire words, and depending on how people are getting the words into their mind. If you're reading it, it's one amount. If you're listening, it's another amount. If it's in conversation versus if it's in a video, there are different numbers of, let's say, exposures to a word that you quote unquote need on average. Again, it's isolating this for a single word is very, very difficult. So we have to speak at the in aggregate, or at looking across a bunch of words. And so different studies just had different estimates for how much time it takes to learn an individual word. And then, if you want to say that you're fluent, if you know 1,000 words or 5,000 or 10,000 words, at a certain point, you can try to boil it down to numbers. And that was what I tried to do. So this 20 number was a conservative estimate. So most of the estimates from the research were, I think, anywhere between, let's say, 6 and 12. And then some others had higher estimates. So I wanted to go with a more conservative estimate. Again, it's based off of trying to study how adults and children master language, it's amazing that we all have a native language. So trying to find that in people who are learning language or a second language is an interesting thing to study as well, and even more difficult to put into practice.
And another question that Aga and I were really asking ourselves a lot of time was also why you chose specifically Easy Polish resources for the challenge. You already partially said that, you liked the concept, and we also have the transcripts, but we are obviously not the only resource out there that has transcripts. There are certainly even just workbooks for beginners that take you from lesson to lesson and have all these audio files with precise transcripts. Why did you decide to go for our content instead for maybe something else that could have been more digestible, or just easier to begin with?
Yeah, that's a very fair question, and I will immediately respond with just great praise for the quality of the work that you guys put out there. I did a little bit of other research, trying to see what options were out there for comprehensible input or content that's specifically designed for different levels, or starting very basic and then working my way up. But and of course other, let's say, Polish educational resources. But I oftentimes find content that's made for learning languages to be very dry. And I know from my experience with Hebrew that if I have something that I want to do, and then all right, let's say if I have something I want to learn or something that I want to read, and it just happens to be in another language, the language will come. And so I think with watching your videos, like I mentioned, it just takes 1 or 2 videos to to see how engaged with the materials you guys are, and with the topics. Just everything about the videos is very engaging. And then at that point, I'll let my brain try and do a lot of the hard work of understanding and getting the language into my head, in addition to, let's say, the hard work of reviewing note cards, etc. And then I think for most people, grammar study and you're really trying to pull teeth if you're writing on your own or trying to speak. But yeah, it was just I'm sure anyone who's watching this live stream knows how good your videos are. So yeah, I think the thing that I kept saying to myself is these videos are so interesting about the people of Poland, or the topics that are just being discussed with a different perspective. So I'd watch them if they were in English. So the fact that Polish is an added benefit is just so great. So I think it's really just the quality of the content, and then it's in Polish.
And which ones were most useful and helpful for you when you were just starting out? If somebody who is thinking just like you about maybe picking up Polish, which videos would you recommend them to begin with?
For me, it's a very hard question to answer, because I find the default for me in terms of recommending to others is finding what will keep people hooked. Because I think a lot of people discover in life, at a certain point, you can get by just based off of your natural talent. But if you really work at things and you're willing to stick with things, that is a bigger guarantee of success. So I could say that the super easy Polish videos with the explanations are a better place to start. But if people find those less engaging than the street interviews, and they'll watch the interviews that you guys do day after day, then I think I generally tend to lean towards what people find personally meaningful. I have a close friend who somehow discovered my my channel, even though it's very much on the small side. And he said, "You focus so much on vocabulary and words, but I love grammar, so I would love to see your take on grammar." And I'm like, I'll try and find a way to get that done, but I don't know, because I don't lean in the grammar direction as much. And so I think that, you know, I'm really partial to the street interviews that you guys have done, because the topics are varied, and you can rewatch parts if it feels like I want to understand how this word is being used, or how sort of the sentence structure is there. Yeah, I think with that being said, though, the slower videos are also helpful. I think it's a question of either what I'm in the mood for, or what I'm trying to get from the specific videos. I think one topic that comes up in the analysis that I do on my channel, and the videos that I focus on, is that for the most part, if you stick with things, it doesn't really matter what you end up watching or studying or listening to, etc., because language is really consistent across the board. So if I were to watch the grammar explanations or the interviews, knowing that if I'm getting that vocabulary and that understanding into my head, knowing that it doesn't really matter between the two of them if I'm going to stick with it, that to me is just that recipe for success. Just puts the decision in the hands of everyone who's watching.
So the general So the general recommendation could be to maybe not watch this particular video that is best for beginners, but watch 5 completely different ones from different styles that we have, and then see which ones you liked best, and then just watch more of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also trying to find, or for me, it's trying to be at the edge of what your abilities are, whatever level that is. So if it's trying to have a sentence that you only have one word that you don't understand, that's a good level or a good way to add more vocabulary. But let's say when I was first watching your videos, I would read the English subtitles and then oftentimes pause just so that I could read through the Polish as much as I could understand or pronounce in my mind. And then after a couple of weeks of that, then I was just trying to focus on the Polish, and even if I wasn't understanding it, letting the words that I did know resonate. And then I would sometimes look down at the English. So yeah, it's again trying to find what works. Yeah, like you said, watching a bunch of videos, seeing what you gravitate towards, and then going from there, and trying to stay at the edge of your abilities so that you don't just get comfortable. It's like people who practice the same song every day on the piano, you'll only improve so much. And then if you try something that's too hard, then you're also not going to grow, because you're going to get frustrated, or just you're going to be getting too slow. So it takes some experimenting and some luck to find what works for you. But I think in general, there's, especially with a channel like yours, if people are trying to learn Polish, it's just a matter of sticking with it and finding what's engaging.
I remember when we discovered your experiment with Justyna, and we saw that you took as one of your videos the interview about scientists in Polish scientists. We were like, oh my God, it's one of the hardest videos we ever made.
And the poor guy is somewhere at the A1 level. He's going to abandon Polish before he gets any further.
See, but I think for me, that a video like that, if I were to just say, let's say I understood Polish, what would I want to watch? That video would be towards the top of the list, because I'm like I mentioned before, I love science more than I love math. But I studied aerospace engineering, so I love science. And for those who are familiar, I have the Richard Feynman lectures on physics. I'm memorizing, or I try and spend a lot of time meaningfully with science. So in my mind, if that's what gets me excited, knowing that there are easier episodes out there, okay, I'll get to those if I want to work on my comprehension, or I don't know, work on just listening in Polish without having subtitles there. Yeah, it kept me excited about things, which I feel like if you're in this for the long haul, 100-day challenge, most people who are watching this live stream right now are probably well beyond a 100-day challenge. I just had I formally called it a 100-day challenge, but if you've been learning for more than 3 months, then you're already past that. So yeah, again, I think it's a matter of finding ways to stick with it. That's the beautiful art that's there.
Yeah, I think this like whole aspect that you're talking about, like finding something that makes you excited, is something that like we see more and more often in our surrounding and how powerful it is. And that like once you get excited about something, language, like you will get there with the language. And I just want to share like an anecdote that I loved from recently. We have like this Discord server for our patrons, and we recently had two guys there who I think they're also quite beginners, but they were like introducing themselves, and they seem to be some kind of geography physics type of guys, and they started discussing on our Discord in Polish, to like give them the credit, about how like the core of the earth is changing its direction and something around those realms. And I was like, wow, like it's like this kind of universe that is just so exciting for them, and they found each other, and they also happen to like both be learning Polish. So now, even though they are probably beginners in Polish, they can like discuss these crazy ideas to also practice the language that they are excited about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing, I speak very much coming from the world of ideas, but as someone who, let's say, likes science and likes numbers, I'm more on the introverted side. And I know a lot of people are come to language learning with hopes of whether it's professional goals that they have or moving, let's say, to Poland. And then the interpersonal connections that are there, that's a huge part of it. I think that I sort of did that vicariously with your videos, where I feel like I'm coming along for, or as I was watching the interview videos, I felt like I was coming along for the ride with you guys, which it feels like I'm part of the team, even though I am very much not part of the team. So I think that's another equally that's another great way for people to have that sense of engagement, where if it's the promise of connection with others, or actually meaningfully engaging with other people and really using language as the tool for that is another thing that
that's what makes learning languages great, that it just connects you to other people.
Exactly.
I'm just wondering if our viewers now are able to share with us their favorite episodes of Easy Polish. Please let us know which one are your favorite. Maybe we will find some connections.
Aga, before we move on to like people's questions, because we are starting to gather quite a few of them and we need to get to them eventually. I know like you also still had a question that you really wanted to ask Josh, which he partially started answering, which is like about why it's all just words and where's the grammar in all of that.
Yes, because that was my first thought when I saw your videos, was like, okay, fine, but why only words? Like, you must know that in Polish, when you know only vocabulary, it doesn't mean that you speak Polish. What about grammar?
That is a very, very good question. And I think that I mentioned it in the video, but it really is. It was a technical reason that I didn't look at grammar for the sake of this 100-day challenge. And it's because if I were to look at other sources of Polish, whether it's content or, let's say, grammar explanations, etc., then I'd be getting exposure to more words, and I wouldn't be able to track that 20 number, which is one of the big points of trying to run this challenge. So I would definitely recommend, especially if people are interested in it, it gives a better understanding and grounding for people. I would definitely recommend finding an appropriate resource for grammar, whether that's a textbook or there's plenty of free resources online and classes as well. So yeah, I do think that a good grounding in grammar it can be very, very helpful and very important. But I also know that on my end, I do lean more in the direction of the online language learning community, where a focus on vocabulary certainly meets the drive that I have. I use a flashcard program called Anki, where I make tens of thousands of note cards. Let's say for German, I and this is sort of the way that the channel started. I had learned 10,000 words in German, really as a result of having spent so much time working with, let's say, Easy German YouTube channel, and then reading books in German and just gathering all of these words and then repeating them so that they could be activated in my mind and not just be something that I could read, but could actually use and have a deeper understanding of. So I love words, and I know that it's really, really effective. It's worked great for German. It's worked great for Hebrew to enable me to do the things that I want with the language. So I know that it works for me for language learning. And so that's why, again, that was the focus of this challenge. But yeah, I was thinking, especially in the first couple of weeks, it would be so helpful to know what are the 36 noun endings, how do all of them group together, what's the general sentence structure. And it was interesting that by the end of the challenge, I had a better sense of, I call it the music of the language. It's not music in the sense that it's just the hearing element, but it's getting more of an intuitive feel for how different things are grouped. And so even though I hadn't seen explanations for grammar outside of some of the videos of yours that I had watched, I still had a little bit of a sense for it, so that as soon as the challenge ended, when I looked things up, I was like, oh, that makes a little bit of sense based on all the stuff that I've seen and heard.
Yeah, we have a related question on this aspect of just learning vocabulary that Chris asked. Maybe I will move you a bit further up, Josh. So Chris is asking whether this flashcard method is effective for a language like Polish, where you have so many different cases. So I think you partially answered that. It would have been helpful to have some grammar resources. But how did you go about, for example, just putting vocabulary into your Anki app without having any grammar background? Were you able to see hey, this word and this word, they're actually one word, but in different cases? Or did you at the beginning just, put all the different versions in there to later realize, hey, they are actually the same words?
Yeah, so the general workflow that I have when I'm in, let's say, note card making mode as I'm immersing is I'll have a tab open with whatever the content is, and then I'll also have Google Translate there. And I know Google Translate for some people works great, for some people and for some languages really does not work great. But I found that in general, I was able to get a solid understanding of what a word meant in English if I also, if I couldn't understand it based on the episodes and the subtitles that you guys had provided. So that was sort of the first filter where I could say, oh, what's the root word here? Knowing that it can be inflected in a million different ways, what's the root word here? So that I can get that into into some sort of a note card. In general, let's say for nouns, I'll just put whatever the baseline noun is, and for the verb, I would just put the infinitive version, and then a translation or two, or sometimes three, just enough that I could understand things. So if, let's say, the word hard, that could it mean hard as in hard like a rock, or it could be hard as in it's difficult. So I would just add enough context that I could understand the nuance, because obviously English and Polish don't have one-to-one translations. And I think in general that process worked pretty well. I think there were only, I think of 800 cards that I made. It was something like, it was definitely less than 5 words that ended up being overlaps or just different inflections of the same word. But this is where I think, to Aga's question, having a good understanding of the grammar means that, okay, I can put one form of the noun there and then understand from there, knowing grammar or knowing some of the rules, how that verb can show up in different ways. And yeah, maybe this means maybe I'm only going to understand that noun, or let's say a verb, 70% of the time as I first start out. But as I get more and more familiar with the language, it'll become more intuitive. I know German has many fewer cases and different forms, certainly or fewer forms for nouns. But I found that generally worked by just having the baseline, and then, from there letting my brain try and fill in the gaps where, oh, I recognize most of this word. Is it that noun, or is it something else?
But do you have your favorite Polish words that you have learned and you have forever in your mind?
Yeah, the one word is zapomnieć. It's the word. It means to forget. And the only reason that I remember it is because I reviewed those cards, or the card that I created for that, I think it was 88 times. That's how many times in a 100-day challenge. Ideally, I wasn't reviewing all the words every day. If I had learned it the first time, I would have seen that card based on Anki's scheduling of the cards. I would have seen it maybe 5 or 6 times. So seeing it 88 times means that I forgot it probably 87 times. So the irony of forgetting the word to forget that many times is it's stuck.
But now you remember.
Yes.
So what does it mean for the challenge? Does it did the 20 exposures rule work for you in the end? And were you for the words zapomnieć, apparently it did not. But for the others, were you more or less successful after seeing the words for 20 times or not really in the end?
So yeah, it's an interesting question. I think in terms of just the raw test scores, I think there's something like 700 words over the course of the challenge that I saw that 20 times, which I think is already an interesting thing. I can see 80,000 total words, and I'm going to see 700 of them at least 20 times. So whatever 700 times 20 is, whatever that number is, you're seeing a lot of words, but you're also seeing a lot of words repeated. So in terms of the test results, I think I scored somewhere in the low 60s, so 62 or 64% in terms of how much I remembered. And a lot of that I know was helped by the reviews that I was doing in Anki, which I think totally makes sense. This is a very single-minded approach to just say, I'm going to watch Easy Polish for 100 days and hope that it gets me to fluency or to more familiarity with the language. But yeah, I think for most of those words, I think over the course of the full 100 days, I was able to learn. I took a test. I wrote some code. I took a test at the end based on all of the words that I had seen, all the episodes I'd watched, and I'd learned more than 500 total words. So to me, there's maybe the 20 times exposure rule. Maybe it needs a little bit. Or I need to understand it better or see how to make it work better for me. Maybe I need to slow down the way that I'm watching or something like that. But knowing that in 100 days, you can still learn a heck of a lot of Polish, that to me was a very rewarding way to go through the challenge. And I can be happy with the results, but then there's also the process that, again, watching your videos is it's better than watching, no hate for Mr. Beast or any other big YouTubers. It's not just empty entertainment. It's real. It feels like there's the language element, there's the culture element. There is, of course, the entertainment element that the energy that you and the team bring. But yeah, I'd say it was a success, but there's a lot of detail about the 20 exposure or 20 times rule.
So what are you planning next? Will you learn more Polish next 100 days with Polish, or you just decided to find another language?
So for now, I have put Polish on pause, really because my goal for the next couple of months here is to do a little bit more of an intensive boot camp with German and with Hebrew on the speaking side of things, because I've spent a lot of time with them, but I don't speak in the languages as much as I should, or in a way that my skills are, I guess, at the level of confidence that I'm hoping for. But I still have all these Anki cards that are sitting and waiting to go. Obviously, I know the best resource to come back to once I'm ready to get back to it. But yeah, like I mentioned, that the reason for starting and wanting to, let's say, connect to heritage in this case, and also hopefully visit, because we do come to trips to Europe are hopefully in the cards at some point soon, or at some point. I'd love to get back to it, just to be able to visit, whether it's just cultural sites within Poland or areas where my family was going back hundreds of years. So this is not just I picked Polish because I wanted to try it out and fun experiment, and that's the end of it. I don't know when, but I know that I will get back to it, also with grammar the next time.
And is this the point where we should maybe also try to answer some of the questions from our viewers? Because we still have quite a few of them. And if anyone else wants to ask Josh anything about his experiment or his language learning journeys, that's the time to like still put them in the chat. We do have one question from Suzanne, who is asking whether you studied, like you mentioned, you like studied Polish for a reason. She's asking if you studied any other Slavic languages, and do you think knowing a related language helps or makes it more confusing to learn Polish?
I haven't studied any other Slavic languages. I actually, when I thought about what languages I would study, I had originally thought Russian was higher up on the list than Polish, just because I figured there are more Russian speakers, where like near me. But I didn't. I ended up going with Polish. So I haven't. But in terms of the relatedness of the language, I know that it in some ways can be helpful. Like as I was going through the 100-day challenge, I noticed that there were some words in German that were similar to or had the same root as the Polish word, or I assume German took the words, given the sort of flexible borders over the past couple hundred years. And I know that those were helpful pegs and ways for me to remember those words. But it could be because that was such a small percentage that it helped. But if Slavic languages, if there's a lot of overlap, then I see how that could be confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like from like our experience and some conversations we have with like Polish teachers and Polish learners, maybe to answer Suzanne a little bit more. Like we hear often that it's just that, like, for example, Slavic learners just learn Polish in a different way than people who have English as their native language. They are able to make a lot of progress at the beginning much faster than maybe you guys, but then they really have to focus on like some nuances and false friends and things that they are like transporting wrongly into like Polish from their native language, so that they sound natural and not like they are speaking their language but just with a Polish accent. It takes a different kind of work for them to get there.
And also some polyglots who knows Polish and other Slavic languages, at the end they speak some inter-Slavic language because they mix words from different languages.
Yeah, that's Aga's observation after us being at a few of the polyglot gatherings. When you speak to someone who speaks a few Slavic languages, at some point they are like confusing some small details, but it's also like very like sweet in a way and doesn't disturb the communication at all.
Yeah,
Usually.
Rhapsody in Lingo wrote just to ask, can confirm you focus more on differences when you learn a similar language. Thank you, Israel, for this comment.
And then we also had, I think, a very interesting question from, forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong, the Jania. I hope that's somewhere around it. But I think we have conversations about this a lot with people, about how fast Polish is. We hear it quite often from our viewers who say that when they watch like street interviews, like watching the Polish ones is like completely different to like maybe watching Germans who like speak a little bit slower. What is your experience, Josh? Do you see differences in like the speed of different languages that you know?
So I think like a lot of learners, everything flew by the first, I don't know, definitely the first couple of weeks. Like it's, even if I'm reading along with things, my eyes can keep up, my brain is not keeping up. So
how does that work when your eyes can keep up but your brain can't?
It just feels like I grab onto specific letters, or if I know that these couple of letters make this sound, or I don't know, there's some English word that's there, then I'll like my head comes up for air every couple of words. So I think compared to German, at least from what I remember, I remember having that same issue with German very early on. But then certainly in the first couple of months, if not even first half year or more, one of the most addicting parts of language learning for me was when you have those little moments of success where like you just hear this wall of Eastern European sounds coming through, and it's just Polish. I can't understand a single thing. And then there's that one word that you somehow recognize. Like those moments are for me some of the most precious moments, because I know that that's like I know that I have this immense just like tank of gasoline that like I'm ready to learn, and I'm ready like for the long run. Certainly for German, I did this for Hebrew. Same thing with like earlier on with the Polish, like with the Polish challenge. And then when you have those moments of things clicking, it's like, yeah, I didn't understand 99% of this, but I caught that one word, or I caught those two words, and then that becomes for me that like those moments become addicting, and you just want more and more of the time that you spend in the language to be like that. And again, I think with the immersing method and watching videos like the ones that you guys put up, and certainly on mine, I know Anki helps a lot for reinforcing vocab, because at a certain point, you know, there might be 5,000 or 7,000 unique words in every single one of your videos, or maybe 5,000 to 7,000 words that are in the videos, and maybe it's 3,000 unique words. Like at a certain point, you just do need to know the words. And I found for me by the end of the 100-day challenge that it no longer just felt like that wall of European or Eastern European sounds. I was able to get a little bit more footing as I was listening, and I could, you know, close my eyes and just listen in Polish, even if the comprehension wasn't there.
Some people are not as gentle as you are and said that Polish sounds like a broken radio. So I can imagine it's like catching words from these moments where it's not broken.
I don't remember the full description that because I remember writing this down early on during the challenge, but I think I remember thinking that Polish sounds like Russian spoken in Italian. And I don't speak Russian or Italian, but it was like just the sound and like the tone of the language was beautiful and also Slavic and confusing. And it was, yeah, it's unique.
So, like, speaking about how you go from this like broken radio to understanding something, we also have one question about like how many times do you watch like the videos to start understanding someone? Did you go with a different video every day, or did you repeat some of them throughout the challenge?
I did repeat some of them more towards the beginning, just as I was trying to both reinforce words and then reinforce the sounds as well. I wanted to have as little, I wanted to be able to have some structure if possible. And my recommendation on this would be to do what works and what you'll actually stick with. I know I've heard of whether it's YouTubers or other people, they'll watch a movie or a show in their target language. One guy watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse like 50 times in Spanish to learn it, and which to me that sounds horrible. I would never do that, but I know that it really improved his Spanish. And so I think finding that middle ground where I know if I watch a video once, I'll get, especially early on, maybe I'll get like 5% of the value. If I watch it a couple more times, maybe I get 20 or 25% understanding. So especially early on, if that helps you stay grounded and actually generate understanding, then for me, that definitely works. But again, if you're going to want to give up because you have to rewatch something over and over again, then yeah, I'd recommend, there are plenty of people who watch things once in a foreign language and then, like that, and then they move on. And we just think of them as like, oh, I'm watching anime, or I'm watching, foreign movies, and I'm just watching them to enjoy them. And so just like the added layer of language learning, it's okay, if you only want to watch something once, just enjoy content. It's in another language.
Yes, we are putting out videos weekly, so there is already at this point quite a few things to watch on our channel if somebody wants to go for something new every time.
But maybe we shouldn't worry. But maybe, Justyna, we shouldn't worry so much that sometimes we repeat things or situations.
Oh, maybe. We do have one more question, I think quite interesting, from someone who says that they are drawn to the English subtitles instead of the Polish ones. Do you think that's a problem, and how to tackle this issue when you are watching some easy Polish videos to learn Polish specifically and not just to enjoy the content maybe?
Yeah, I think the question is a very self-aware question that gets at a big fear that I think is well-founded, that you can watch content in the language and you can spend time with the language that you want to learn and not learn it 100%. And one of the easiest ways to do that is if you just watch and just stay where is comfortable, which is most likely your native language. I do think the awareness of the question probably speaks to the fact that you're peeking up a little bit into the Polish subtitles, which I think is definitely a good practice. And I think this is where, if after you watch, you feel like you watched a video or you read English subtitles to a Polish video, I would definitely encourage trying to peek up a little bit more, or find ways, even if maybe you watch it and read the English subtitles, then you do it the next time. Speaking of repeating a video, maybe you watch it again where you're looking up a little bit more at the Polish, because then you're familiar with the content. So it's no longer just the novelty that is the struggle, but now you can focus more on the language. So yeah, I would definitely, sort of level appropriate, find ways to make sure that you're creating real friction with Polish, because friction is painful, but just like working out, if you don't exercise your muscles, you're not going to grow. Like, you can sit there and you use a 1 pound or 1 kilo weight, but you're not going to actually get stronger. And that's what reading in just your native language, or just reading the English subtitles. So, but at the same time, if you try and do too much at once, then you can get injured physically, if we're talking about working out, or you might want to give up or not want to continue with Polish, which again would also be a loss, because so you want to find that sweet spot where it feels challenging, but also you're understanding enough that it's exciting to keep going.
Yeah, and we've heard from like a lot of people who are like watching our videos specifically to learn Polish, who at some point just like took a piece of paper and covered the English subtitles. Maybe not the most glamorous way to watch YouTube videos with a piece of paper over your screen, but I know that for a lot of people who can't get themselves to like really stick to watching just the Polish ones, they like create a barrier for themselves to not be able to see these English ones at some portions of their learning process.
We have one more question, which seems to be interesting. I'm curious about your answer. The last one. Have you discovered anything through the Easy Polish videos that surprised you about Polish culture?
It's a very good question. So I mentioned before that I'm not the most. I'm more of an introvert, and so I love languages are about connecting with other people. But for me, that's a nice side benefit. But unlike a lot of other people, that is one of the main benefits. So one way in which I really felt that sense of connectedness with others is, I guess, culturally, just the excitement that Polish people have about being Polish, and the excitement about when they see other people coming to learn Polish. I saw that on your videos, not about myself. And then when I posted the 100-day challenge, just seeing like that enthusiasm, I thought was such a beautiful thing, because I think, especially now, let's say like in the political world that we live in, and like historically, there's questions about what does it mean to be proud of the country that you come from, because that can go wrong in a lot of ways. And I think just seeing the immense pride and excitedness to share and enthusiasm that comes up about people sharing a language or trying to share a language, I thought that was a beautiful thing. I think, especially as an American, where there's there's always the default that, let's say, most people, or a lot of people, speak English, and certainly if you try and speak another language with an American accent, if the other person knows English, they're going to default to, or they're just going to switch English because they want to make it easier on you. They just want to get through the conversation, whatever it is. But that's something, again, my speaking and writing in Polish is virtually non-existent. Again, that wasn't the goal of the challenge, but I think that overflowing sense of just, Polish is something that excites you. I'm Polish. I'm proud to share that, just, share my enthusiasm. That is a beautiful cultural expression to come through.
Is this something that you haven't found as much in other languages that you were learning?
I think I've seen other people get excited about other people, or about me, or non-speakers of a language trying to learn. And I generally see, let's say with Germans are generally a bit more reserved. So I think it comes through in a different way. And I don't know if it's just like the typical Polish personality to get excited in that way, and Germans are a bit more stiff and introverted or restrained. And don't get me wrong, I have tremendous fondness for all the Germans that I've interacted with over the course of learning, and Kari, Manuel, and Janusz I know Janusz is Polish, so it's on the on the Easy German team, I see that
He
that same.
brings the Polish enthusiasm into the team.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that come through on the German side, or like within the culture. But I know that like on that front with Spanish as well, which I grew up in American high school learning that as well. It just wasn't the same sense of just like I can't believe you've undertaken such a challenge. Like welcome to the team of trying to learn Polish. It's it's really beautiful.
Yeah,
But
I personally.
Yeah, I just want to say that if you would ever come to Poland and try to use one of the words you've learned during your challenge, you will be like a hero, believe me.
Yeah, I feel the love.
I personally think it comes a little bit down to the fact that for like a very long time, Polish was such an unpopular choice. Like even when Aga and I first started out, like the Easy Polish channel, we did it for like fun and for the love for like Kari and Janusz, who really wanted like the Polish side of the franchise. But we were also very often like asking ourselves like who would be learning Polish, and we were so excited about all the people who like traveled to see us or wrote that messages and actually learned with us. And I think like this excitement comes from this time, and we are probably now about when like the time starts that actually Polish is becoming like more and more popular choice, and we have more and more people learning Polish and moving to Poland and finding it an interesting place to be. So that's what makes Polish people excited about foreigners learning Polish, I would guess.
And many people really believe here in the stereotype that Polish is one of the hardest languages in the world.
Yeah, having spent 100 days with it, I can vouch for that. Knowing the tip of the iceberg that I was exposed to. Yeah.
Oh. I think it's time to like slowly start wrapping up. It was so lovely chatting with you, Josh, that the time flew by, but unfortunately we have to come to an end of the live stream. If any of our viewers have like any more questions, they could probably leave them in the comments out under the replay. Maybe at some point you will like have a moment to like get back to some of these people. And obviously they can like follow along your crazy language learning experiments on your YouTube channel, one word at a time, and see if you get back to Polish at some point or what your next challenge will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to speak and commit to being able to answer the questions, all of that, because I wasn't sure just in terms of the live stream functionality, all of that. Yeah, I'll throw any questions you guys have in the chat here, and of course on the video underneath. I'll take a look and answer as good as I can.
But yes. Josh, let's make a deal. After your next 100 days challenge in Polish, we will invite you again.
And hopefully have a live stream in Polish, at least at some kind of level. You will be able to.
We'll say 2034, I'm there. It might take a couple of years.
2044. That's in 10 years. It doesn't take that long to learn Polish. We've seen people do it faster. Trust us.
I know. It's all about prioritization. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll do another live stream.
Oh, we hope so. You are more than welcome to visit us again whenever you do another Polish learning adventure and want to share with our viewers about this. It was lovely having you here, and we wish you the best of luck continuing to learn Polish or whatever other language might be next on your list.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys are a great team. You have great viewers, great content. Yeah, just all the success in the world.
And thank you to all our viewers for all the questions. They were much more interesting, some of them, than we prepared. And as always, we count on you.
We will see you next week in another episode of Easy Polish on Thursday at 7 p.m. and in another live stream in about a month from now, most likely. And for everyone who's still sticking around, on the 3rd of August, we are doing a meetup in Warsaw. We will be there over the weekend shooting some episodes, and on Saturday in the afternoon, you can meet with us. There's all the details on our Instagram, so make sure to join us if you have a free Saturday afternoon and you happen to be in Warsaw next weekend.
And if you still have some questions about Josh's idea and the project, remember that he have his own YouTube channel, and you can always go there and see those very, very interesting videos.
Yes, one word at a time it is. Thank you so much, guys. We will be wrapping up here. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, guys.